All right, guys, Wes here. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got some news for God of War Ragnarok that you guys do not want to miss out on, including new details revealed by the developers that kind of paint a very interesting future for Sony Santa Monica, as well as the God of War franchise. So as you know, God of War Ragnarok is likely going to be Sony's poster child exclusive for a while now. At least that is until Spider-Man 2 comes out. The second installment of the Norse saga was a massive success, and while it was a single-player only game with no plans for DLC, it seems like that Sony and the developer Santa Monica Studios aren't done with it just yet. So we're going to be going over all of the recent news that has come out about God of War Ragnarok and what it could mean for the future of the series and where Sony Santa Monica could be taking things in the near future. Guys, we are getting so close to 100,000 subscribers, and because of that, I'm giving away a PlayStation 5 and a game copy of your choice. To enter, all you have to do is subscribe to my channel, comment your Twitter handle, tweet me proof that you're subscribed, and I've also got some bonus entries in the pinned comment. God of War Ragnarok is rapidly becoming one of Sony's biggest success stories in the history of the company, boasting millions of copies sold in the first few months of the game's lifecycle. Ragnarok, of course, launched on November 9th last year and was the first cross-gen entry in the entire franchise, which helped it quickly become one of the fastest selling first-party Sony games of all time. It's crazy what happens when you don't lock a good game to one platform, right? Aside from receiving critical acclaim and dozens of award nominations, God of War Ragnarok managed to sell 5.1 million copies in its first week and has reportedly sold over 11 million copies as of February 2023. Now, obviously, there's been a ton of rumors floating around about the game's future regarding DLC, director's cuts, and whatnot, including an all but confirmed PC port that should be announced by the end of the year. The game's director, Eric Williams, stated in an interview a while back that the team was not currently working on any kind of DLC, but he didn't rule out the possibility going forward. Maybe they're working on the spin-off game that's rumored to be starring Atreus, but are kind of waiting on Sony to give the green light for that. Now, it's also worth noting that God of War 6 is confirmed to be ditching the Norse setting and bringing Kratos into an entirely new world, similar to how God of War 2018 ditched the Greek mythology for the Norse one. That being said, Ragnarok at the current moment is the final Norse entry in the God of War franchise, and Santa Monica Studios likely have a few more ideas they'd like to get into the world before leaving the setting behind for good. But what if I told you the developers kind of had a different idea for Ragnarok that could have had massive implications for the future of the God of War franchise? Well, a few days ago, a lengthy interview with the Ragnarok writing team was on a podcast with the YouTube channel MinMax, I'll leave a link in the description, and revealed a number of crazy things about the game's production and what could have been, as well as some ideas that may be implemented in the future, be it through an expansion pack or even in God of War 6. Now, at one point in the interview, the subject of Atreus and his fate came up, to which one of the writers said that it was actually controversial in the studio during development. Also, real quick spoiler alert ahead, but Richard Gobert, one of the writers, stated that while it made narrative sense for Atreus to leave at the end of Ragnarok, it made post-game narratives much more difficult since he would have to come up with some kind of reason for the other companion character to be present without stepping on any emotional payoff that was already reached with Atreus in his arc. Apparently, they even threw the idea that Atreus just saying that he was going to leave and then sticking around with Kratos for the post-game material for the sake of the gameplay, but eventually they all agreed that this simply wouldn't have the desired emotional impact, leading to them altering the story and giving him a definitive departure. I don't know about you guys, but I think the studio made the right call here. It's also worth noting that the writers agreed that it was important for Atreus to leave for the sake of the future of the God of War franchise, which could be taken as indirect confirmation that he will not be in the next game, or at least not to the extent that he was in the recent entries. Perhaps the craziest scrapped story concept revealed in the interview was something that almost made it into production that would have drastically changed the course of the game itself. According to the writers, there was initially an idea to have Kratos actually get killed off by Thor early in the game, at which point the objective then becomes getting Kratos out of Helheim so he could take his revenge 20 years later. One possible gameplay scenario would have been that you would lose the first boss fight with Thor as Kratos and then play as Atreus for the middle chunk of the game until pulling your father out of purgatory before the climax. Another idea could have been that after Kratos dies in the first boss fight, like I said, there's a 20-year time jump and then you're pulled out of hell by Atreus and have to work to undo all of the damage that's been done in your absence. It's a little unclear just how far this dead Kratos concept got in the planning phase or how it would have impacted the middle portion of the story, but it's a pretty old school God of War idea and I would have been totally down for it. Kratos went to the underworld a few times in the classic trilogy, so this wouldn't be the first time he's essentially angered his way back to life. However, with the Norse series being a bit more grounded and serious, I think scrapping this idea was a good idea to maintain the tone. Now, Loki's mask is a bit of a mystery to the community and fans are always looking for a solid confirmation on its backstory. Interestingly, the two writers actually talked about Loki's mask in the interview, revealing that it was actually a relatively late addition to the story. According to Richard Gobert, the idea for Loki's mask came out of Atreus' search for identity and an embodiment of what he learned from Kratos and his mother. Also, another kind of funny bit, co-writer Matt Sophis also emphasized that the mask in God of War Ragnarok had nothing to do with Jim Carrey's movie The Mask, which is kind of a relief, honestly. I was gonna feel a bit silly if this big emotional part of God of War Ragnarok that allegedly has implications for the future of the series was just a troll and an Easter egg based on the Jim Carrey movie The Mask. The writers then jokingly admitted that one of the team members actually brought up that there was a decent number of similarities between Loki's mask and Jim Carrey's mask, but they insisted that it was all accidental, so I'll take it. Now, while God of War Ragnarok was critically acclaimed, there was one piece of common criticism, and that was the amount of chatter your NPC companions let out while you were trying to solve puzzles, often resulting in them solving the puzzles for you. Depending on who you are, this could get kind of frustrating, but according to the writers, this was an intentional decision on their part. While they did want the characters to be talking a lot in order to make things more fluid, they didn't actually realize that they went a little bit too far until after the game launched and players started giving their feedback. Apparently, playtesters didn't say anything about the characters talking too much, but the writers agreed with the criticism, saying the timing for the first hint during puzzles probably shouldn't have been so quick or aggressive, and if they had more time to fine-tune everything, that's likely a change that would have been made. Interestingly, they said that they would love to issue a patch that fixes all of the problems, but since that really isn't up to them, they couldn't promise any changes in the future. Perhaps if the rumors of a director's cut end up being true, I'm sure this is an aspect that will end up getting fixed, because it is a little bit annoying when you're trying to figure something out and then one of your NPC companions just gives out the solution before you can even put all the pieces together. I'm all for giving hints during tough puzzles, but when the hints come too quickly or aggressively, it can feel like the game doesn't trust you to do anything on your own. Next up, one of the biggest bombshells dropped during the interview was that the writers referred to it as the biggest piece of cut content. Apparently, there was an entire chunk of the story based around Sinmara that was extremely personal to the director Eric Williams, but that unfortunately had to be completely cut out in order to preserve the story's pacing. According to Matt Sophis, you would have visited Surtur, and then you would have visited Sinmara, and it would have been a much slower section of the game, but a very emotional one as well. However, it was seen as being far too slow, and there really wasn't any good way to speed it up, so they decided to cut that entire subplot. Ultimately, I think this was the right call, since a lot of us were eager to get to Ragnarok and see how it all went down, but I would have loved to see this subplot play out. All I'm saying is this would be the perfect thing to be added to a director's cut. Now, the interview on the MinMax YouTube channel also talked about the God of War Amazon Prime show, but the writers didn't have a ton to say about it. They did, however, confirm that Cory Barlog is working very hard with Amazon to make it as authentic as possible, which is good news. It's also good news that someone close to the game is taking on an important creative position with the show, similar to how Neil Druckmann is working hand in hand with the team at HBO on The Last of Us. The God of War Ragnarok writers stated that they have seen a few outlines for the show and were available for consultation, but were not really directly involved with the writing of the show itself, which sounds pretty standard to me. Writing a TV show is very different from writing a video game, so it makes sense that Amazon would want to bring in a different writing team, but as long as Cory Barlog has as much control as I think he will, I'm confident in the final product. And it's also reassuring that what the writers did see about the God of War show has been great so far, according to them. So that's pretty good news. With the insane success of God of War Ragnarok, as well as the opening interest in its world and story, I don't think it's all out of the question for Sony and Santa Monica Studios to want to push out a DLC or some kind of director's cut before the Amazon show. While the developers have been rather quiet about whether or not a DLC is out of the question, we know for certain that God of War 6 is not going to come out for a few more years, and with the insane amount of cut content and scrapped ideas that Ragnarok had during development, there are still a million places this game could go in the future. I said in previous videos that I don't think Ragnarok is going to get an expansion or some kind of director's cut if Sony waits much longer, but I think I may actually be wrong about that. Ragnarok's ongoing sales and lasting impact could actually be the ticket to a DLC expansion sometime in the next year or two, perhaps even coinciding with the Amazon show or as a way to hype it up. Similar to how the remake of Last of Us Part 1 was released very close to the debut of the HBO show. With so much cut content and so many stories over at Santa Monica Studios, I find it hard to believe that they're not going to make use of God of War Ragnarok, especially before God of War 6 comes in and totally changes everything. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think God of War Ragnarok is going to get an expansion in the future? And do you think Kratos dying in God of War Ragnarok would have been more impactful for you? Let me know down below. And guys, don't forget to enter my 100,000 subscriber giveaway. I'm giving away a PlayStation 5 and a game copy of your choice, so definitely be sure to enter that. I've got all of the details in the pinned comment. Thank you all for watching, guys. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on, and until next time, guys, this has been Wes, and I'll talk to you in the next video.